Hi guys, it'll come as no surprise that Reform UK looked at the loss of 10 people in the English Channel and tried to make some political hay out of it. Richard Tice, when interviewed by Jacob Rees-Mogg here, started out by criticising the new government for removing what he sees as a deterrent, the Rwanda scheme. He doubled down on his solution to stopping the boats, picking people up in the sea and returning them to France. He then said that the Prime Minister, the Home Secretary and others have blood on their hands. Absolutely disgraceful. Have a listen.
So what we're actually seeing is that having removed any form of deterrent...
Okay, well, the Rwanda scheme was not a deterrent. It didn't work. The numbers rose, the numbers of people crossing the channel rose, while the Rwanda scheme was in place. Even, I believe, Richard Tice was criticising the Rwanda scheme for not being a deterrent. So what is he complaining about here? Now, the media referred to it as a deterrent on a number of occasions in the run-up to the May elections, when we saw a number of people leave Great Britain, cross the Irish Sea, into Northern Ireland and then into the Republic. It caused a bit of a diplomatic spat between the two nations, but then eventually what happened was the people were returned. So how is that a deterrent? It was a deterrent for some people to stay in Britain, but it was not a deterrent for people crossing the Channel.
The numbers are increasing, and the gangs, far from being scared about the Home Secretary's promise to smash the gangs, they're actually saying this is an opportunity. The deterrent is going away. The likelihood of being granted asylum has dramatically increased under this new government, and so they're cramming these increasingly frail and...
Why is he always so dishonest? There isn't an increase in the chance of being granted asylum. They're going to increase the number of cases processed. See, the Tories were not processing claims. So it's very difficult for people to be granted asylum in the first place. They were in a sort of limbo. They couldn't be granted asylum, but they couldn't leave. It was a political decision. But at the end of the day, we're talking about between 70 and 80% of people who claim asylum are granted asylum. I don't see that's going to change under the Labour government, because it's not really a government decision. It's the Home Office guidelines. So they will make the decision. The civil servants will make the decision, not the minister.
Fragile, single-use dinghies with ever more people. It seems this dinghy, literally the bottom ripped out of it. So many people were clambering on board. And it's a very simple, legally allowable situation that has to prevail here. Both the French authorities, who are aiding and abetting criminality by allowing these boats to be sort of taxied over by the French Navy, and the British authorities have got to say, it ends. It stops now. We pick up and take back. And we know it works. We know it's legal because the Belgian authorities have done it. And
oh God, the Belgian authorities did it because they found a boat in the sea, in French waters, and returned it to French territory, because that was the safest thing to do. A British vessel did the same. The safest location was French territory. So they contacted the French authorities. Can we leave these people off here? Yes, you can, because it's the safest place to leave them off. Why is this so difficult for Richard Tice to understand?
And on one day since being the new government, the Border Force under the new Labour government did exactly the same thing when a boat got into trouble. The moment we do that, this whole nightmare, these tragedies and these deaths stop within 2 to 3 weeks. And it's utterly...
We're talking about situations, excuse me, we're talking about situations where the Coast Guard come in contact with a boat. We're talking about a situation where charity organizations come in contact with a boat in distress. Not every boat is in distress. So it's very difficult for the Coast Guard to stop the boats if the boat is just moving along at its normal pace. They reach out to people who are in distress. They see a boat that's in danger of sinking. They try to rescue the people, and then they take them on board and they take them to a place. In some cases, they see, look, this boat is not seaworthy. We better take these people on board as well. But this is where they come in contact with people. But they don't always come in contact with people. Lots of boats pass. You can't fill the English Channel with vessels to stop the boats. It's nonsensical.
Inexcusable, unforgivable, blood on the hands of the government, the Home Secretary, the Prime Minister, and all of these people who will not do this.
But Richard, how can you do that if the French won't take them back? So I assume that reform policy is to send people back. But if the French aren't willing to take them back, once they've got into UK territorial waters, is it realistic to send them back to France? We may want to do that, we may think it's a good idea, but the French have to accept them.
No, they don't. Under international maritime law, and we are a rules-based nation, and this government constantly says it complies with international law. The 1982 Convention of the Law at Sea clearly gives us that legal right to pick up and take back, and it provides...
No. It does not. Why is this guy always so dishonest? I looked at the convention, the 1982 convention. It says that you must render assistance to anyone found at sea in danger of being lost. It says you must proceed at all possible speed to the rescue of people in distress, if informed that they need assistance, as long as that's reasonably expected of the ship. After assisting after a collision to ensure that the safety of people involved there as well. Now, these obligations are not only within state territorial waters, but also any designated search and rescue regions beyond those waters. That's what the convention says. It doesn't say anything about, well, if you pick people up, you can take them back to France. No, it's about you have to rescue people if you see them in distress. You have to stay there to make sure that the situation has been resolved. And you must provide assistance for a reasonable amount of time. And you're not obliged just to operate within your own waters. So if a British vessel is in French waters and it sees it, look, it's better actually to take these people to France, then it should do that. But if it's in UK waters, there's no obligation, there's no reason, I should say, for them to take people to France. Unless it's safer to go to France. But if you're already, in English waters or British waters, well, it makes more sense to take them to British territory, not French. But he keeps citing this convention, but I don't think he's actually ever read it.
It's a legal obligation on the French to pick up and take back. And yet no one has the courage, the guts, the leadership to read the treaty and then act upon it.
But there's always a question in international law about enforceability, because there's no court that can rule on this. And if the reality is the French aren't taking them back, I just don't see how you can compel the French to take them, that it requires their support and cooperation, and that just isn't there.
That's simply not true. And they've got two choices when it comes to it, right? If we say they're not crossing the 12-mile line and we're going to pick up and take back, which is what should happen, then the French have either got to do a deal with us and create a rapid processing centre in northern France, or they're going to shoot us. Well, they're not going to shoot us, Jacob, so they're going to do a deal with us.
Okay, let's ignore the second part, because it's reaching out to the even more extremes within the Reform UK. Let's go to war with France. No. He raised an interesting point here about processing, and this is the first time I've actually heard somebody from Reform UK support the idea, or at least talk about the idea of processing asylum claims in France. Now, the French authorities have agreed to this in the past, but the UK government under the Tories rejected the idea. Now, I think they've rejected it for two reasons. One is political. They're happy to see these channel crossings because they want to use them as a political football, or they wanted to when they're in power. But there are also other concerns about a processing centre. There are sovereignty concerns, because who is responsible for that processing centre? Is that British territory in France? Is France responsible for it? Is Britain responsible for it? So it's a complicated issue, a bit like an embassy. Would it be maybe it's better to process people at the embassy? because then you don't have to set up a new authority or a new piece of sovereignty, a new piece of Britain in France. There are legal and logistical issues as well. And there's the issue that the Tories keep banging on about, deterrence. So some people have argued against a processing centre because it would create a pull factor. People would go there in their thousands to claim asylum. So if you're not processing, if the problem is the Tories were not processing claims in Britain, what's to believe that they would process claims in France? Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.